Good morning, y'all. All right, so I have one bag that has a little bit of face lotion and, stuff you put on your face in the morning. Even if you don't wear makeup, you have to put something on your face so it doesn't crack at this elevation. Um, and it's gone, and that's okay. So I was thinking this morning about homeopathic versus toxic levels of things. And I know a lot of effort has been made to train people that homeopathy is imagined, but here's what homeopathy is. If you throw a pebble into a pond, it makes ripples. The ripples are real. That's what homeopathy is. That's it in a nutshell. Okay? The vibration of something does affect things, and if you want a demo of it because you went to school online, and my daughter went to school online, I'm not knocking online schooling, but there are some things we learn when we're out in nature that maybe stick a little differently. And one of those things is when you throw a pebble into a pond, it tends to make ripples. Okay? And the ripples are real. And if you think of homeopathy as a tiny pebble that's made to make a very subtle ripple because you're trying to adjust something very subtly versus rocking it around a lot, which is what stronger things like pharmaceuticals do. Pharmaceuticals, by definition, are concentrations of things. Okay, they have to be highly concentrated to the point that they could be toxic in the average person's hands in those concentrations if not regulated. That's why they're claimed to need to be regulated. Okay, that is the actual definition of pharmaceuticals. It's not woo-woo, and it's not extremism, it's not extreme liberalism, it's not anti-science. That's the definition of a pharmaceutical, is it's basically so concentrated that it was deemed in need of control from the average person poisoning themselves because it's in concentrated form of whatever the substance is, whether it's plant-based or synthetic. That is why it has been so difficult to get pharmaceutical type approval of natural supplements, because they are not concentrated and by definition are not pharmaceuticals and therefore cannot be approved. But people fought hard to override that, and now we have what we have today. So there's advantages and disadvantages to that inclusion. It is nice to be able to have standardized systems that guarantee the efficacy and concentration of things, because unfortunately there's a lot of people that take negative advantage of a lack of regulation. So they kind of pee in the pool for all of us and encourage more regulation. So moderation in all things, including moderation, right? So if you think of homeopathy as throwing a tiny pebble into a pond, it still makes a ripple. And if you're wanting to adjust something subtly, you might want to make a smaller ripple. So that ripple is not an imagined effect of the pebble, just like homeopathy is not an imagined event or practice, but it is a subtle one, so it can be more difficult to measure in a world with a lot of factors and cofactors and all sorts of things that can affect the outcome or affect whether the outcome is even noticeable or effective. That being said, it is important to recognize that subtle things can work too, sometimes better than less subtle things. And at the opposite end of that extreme would be toxicity. And somewhere in between, depending on the person and the substance and the combination of the two, and that person's individual's circumstances. Pharmaceuticals fall in between those two on the spectrum. Pharmaceuticals are more towards the concentrated end by their original definition. They were deemed in need of regulation because they were too concentrated to be considered safe for the average person to distribute them on their own or use them on their own without a doctor regulating them and prescribing them, and without a doctor determining or making an educated, well-educated guess at what a safe dosage of that would be. Okay. So if you look at pharmaceuticals on the more concentrated end, and then the more extreme end of that being toxicity, a mega concentration, and the less extreme end being homeopathics, I would ask you to consider that if something's too subtle for you to catch it, it may not be much use at the time. So maybe consider slowing down a little, looking a little bit deeper, appreciating the profound power of space and stillness and silence in uncovering to us deeper levels of knowledge and understanding and authentic control, especially self-control. On the other end of that spectrum, if you get too much of anything, it can kill you. Even too much enlightenment too fast can kill you. Think of the old, what is it, Razors of the Lost Ark is one of the original trilogy, where they had the copy of the Ark, where they had a copy of the Ark of the Covenant in the movie, and the lightning goes through the woman who's just like, I want it all now, and boy, did she get it. It's like wishing you were a hot dog, right? I am not sure why I'm rushing, but whatever. I guess I need to be. So if you consider one end of the spectrum, as being homeopathy, and homeopathy isn't imagined. It is like a tiny pebble making ripples in a pond. If you were needing to adjust the frequency of how a boat rocked up and down, a little toy boat on the water, and if you think of the system you're wanting to adjust in a person or an animal as that little toy boat, and you wanted to adjust that boat without tipping it over, you might throw a tiny pebble to adjust how the waves were rocking, right? That's what homeopathy does. On the other end of the spectrum, there's toxicity, and toxicity is when you have too much of something, whether it was a good thing to begin with or not. Very often things that are toxic in high concentrations in homeopathic treatments, dosages, exposures, in very, very minute exposures, sometimes can actually be beneficial. And that's going to vary from person to person and from one circumstance to the next. That's why we have people trained in these arts of medicine to help us out with it. Now, the thing about toxicity is even too much pristinely clear water will kill you in too high concentrations, because it dilutes primarily because it dilutes other things you need in your body, specifically some electrolytes, including some that organs like your heart run on, and we want that to keep running steady, right? So I would ask you today to take a step back from that world we've been living in where this is good and this is bad and this is always poison and this is always medicine, because it really does vary just as much as circumstances vary, just as much as our individual life circumstances vary. What we need to look at is this pattern, whether it's a person, a place, a thing, a substance, synthetic or not, is it really good for me? Is it bringing out the best in me? Is it helping not only me, but those around me? Whether it's helping those around me directly or immediately or down the line, am I making the world a better place by exposing myself to this one time, a few times, chronically? Am I able to separate myself from this? Am I identifying my core self with something outside of me. And that can be medicines, people, jobs, clothes, our car, our house. What are you clinging to that it's time to let go of? And what do you need to bring into your life, no matter how big or how small, that would make your world a better place? Y'all have a good day.